Hello, this is John Miyares with the USDA NASS Great Lakes Regional Field Office in East Lansing, Michigan. In this presentation, I want to take a few minutes to talk about the objective yield surveys we're going to be conducting this summer and fall and their purpose. The National Agricultural Statistics Service, or NASS, is responsible for estimating production of most crops grown in the United States. Because of their importance to the agricultural economy, early season forecasts are prepared for major crops like corn and soybeans. NASS conducts several surveys to obtain the basic data needed to fulfill this obligation. The primary goal of these surveys is to provide the most accurate yield and production forecast possible given the available data. Although crop acreage changes from year to year, some of the largest variations in crop production are caused by fluctuations in yield. In our region, the Objective Yield Surveys, or OY surveys, provide data for monthly forecasts and end-of-season estimates of planted and harvested acres, yield and production of winter wheat, corn for grain, and soybeans. Crop production forecasts have two components: harvested acres and yield per acre. The planted and harvested acreage estimates for corn and soybeans were set using the June Crops APS and June area surveys. Expected corn and soybean yields are obtained monthly, August through November, from two different types of yield surveys: a grower reported survey and an objective measurement survey. Growers in the monthly ag yield sample are asked every month to provide their assessment of yield prospects for the crops that they grow. The survey is conducted primarily by mail, with telephone follow-up for those who do not respond by mail or online. The Objective Measurement Survey, which we know as the Objective Yield Survey, consists of sample fields in which counts and measurements are made to plants in random plots laid out in each field. The term objective means that the basic information is based upon actual counts and measurements, compared to the Ag Yield Survey, which is considered subjective, since data are based on the operator's best estimate of the expected crop yield. Each survey produces indications of prospective yield, which commodity specialists must interpret to arrive at the official forecast or estimate of NASS and the USDA. Each month, USDA publishes crop supply and demand estimates for the nation and for the world. These estimates are used as benchmarks in world commodity markets because of their comprehensive nature, objectivity, and timeliness. United States supply estimates are produced by NASS and published in the monthly crop production reports, while the World Agricultural Outlook Board publishes the monthly World Agricultural Supply and Demand Estimates, or the WASDE report. The size of these crops and any change in the size are crucial information needed by many people involved in agriculture. This is why our reports make national news as these crops near harvest time. The individual needing this information the most, whether we'd like to think so or not, is the farmer. For only with accurate statistical information about the size of these crops can farmers make knowledgeable decisions about marketing strategies, whether to sell early using forward contracts, to hedge on the futures market, or sell on the cash market, but also farm business practices. The reports can help provide information used to make decisions. Do we use on-farm storage in place of selling and storing your crop at the local elevator? Or do we maybe need to change the intended use of a planted crop because there's too much supply for grain? The Objective Yield Survey provides factual information, which is a tool that farmers can use to make knowledgeable decisions about their business. The tool is needed by any farmer who sells grain. Production forecasts are greatly relied upon also by those in agribusiness who provide farmers with inputs, equipment, and other goods and services. They study these reports when planning their marketing strategies. Then analysts will transform the statistics into projections of coming trends, interpretations of the trend's economic implications, and evaluating the alternative courses of action for producers, agribusinesses, and policymakers. Congress relies on changing yield and production data to help formulate farm legislation. USDA agencies use the crop data to determine crop insurance and disaster aid payments, along with other program benefits. For example, USDA production forecasts are used to anticipate loan receipts and pricing of loan stocks for grains. Others who pay close attention to the monthly reports include the transportation sector, warehouse and storage companies, banks and other lending institutions, commodity traders, and processors. Objective yield surveys are scientifically designed. The field observations and measurements must be made precisely according to procedures that will be discussed as part of your training. Yield forecasts are based on counts and measurements of a crop after it has emerged, but before it is mature. Accuracy of each crop production forecast will depend directly upon your performance and the performance of all other enumerators working on this survey. Through these objective yield surveys, operators are first interviewed in early August to verify acreage previously reported. Enumerators then record any changes in acreage intended for harvest and obtain permission to enter the sample fields to make counts and measurements. Then, each month, starting shortly before the 1st of September, plant and fruit counts, fruit measurements, and maturity determinations are made until the crop is mature or harvested. At maturity, or immediately before harvest, a final crop cutting is made. Sample fruit, whether it's corn ears or soybean pods, are sent to a lab to determine fruit weight, grain weight, moisture content. A post-harvest visit is then made to glean fruit left in some sample fields to help estimate for harvest loss in that field. Fields for corn and soybeans are selected from the June area survey tracts where we have reported planted acres of the commodities of interest. As an enumerator, you will be responsible for monitoring the sample areas of those corn and soybean fields selected during the growing season. Data on plant count, grain count, and weight, which are used in determining the official estimate for corn and soybean yield and production, must be collected during personal visits to the field. Counts and weights are expanded to a per acre yield and adjusted to a standard moisture content for the commodity. Estimates of harvest loss are computed and subtracted from the gross yield of the harvest plots to determine a net yield per acre. The results of the yield forecasts are published each month from September through November in the monthly crop production report. The corn and soybean final yield and production will be published in the annual crop production report, which will come out around the 12th of January. Work using objective yield measurements on wheat and corn began in the late 1950s. The increasingly important soybean crop was added to the program in the early 1960s. All acres for harvest as grain in these leading producing states are eligible for this survey. For corn, the following states are currently included in the objective yield program: Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Minnesota, Missouri, Nebraska, Ohio, South Dakota, and Wisconsin. These 10 states account for more than 80% of the corn for grain produced in the United States every year. For soybeans, there are 11 states in the program. As you'll notice, they are the same 10 as the corn states, with the exception that Wisconsin is not in the program, and both Arkansas and North Dakota are in the program. This slide shows the objective yield sample sizes for the Great Lakes region for 2021. You will notice that these sample sizes are the same as what we had last year, with Indiana having 100 corn samples and 130 soybean samples. In Ohio, we have 140 corn samples, 150 soybean samples. The Great Lakes region also conducts the winter wheat objective yield survey in Ohio, where we have 80 sample fields selected.